Hello, my name is Michael Detmer. I'm in APUS history at the Miami Valley School, and recently we were given an assignment to reflect on something that was related to our reading. So, as I've been reading the chapters, I've been reading a lot about founding a new government, and it kind of brings up the question: what is the ideal government? What is the purpose of government? So I kind of thought I'd look into that. The dictionary.com definition of government is the political direction and control exercised over the actions of the members, citizens, or inhabitants of communities, societies, and states. Direction of the affairs of a state, community, etc. Political administration. Um, that's a good definition of government. I think it fails to include that government serves to protect the interests of the people. Um, and I think that's as far as government should go. Like, if it's looking after itself, that's when government's gone too far. And there have been many different forms of government throughout history. Obviously, early governments, there were a lot of monarchies, and this is obviously when there's king and queen at the top, and they have the final say, sort of like communism, which came later. Um, but recently, we've seen this shift from these these governments with an all-powerful figure at the top, to democracy. A lot of countries that were previously communist have recently become democracies. All of the, well, not all of the, but a lot of Russian satellite states have renounced communism. And I think slowly the world is making its shift towards democracy, but obviously democracy has its own problems as well. When America was being founded, a lot of people had doubts that the people of America could, in a sense, rule themselves or even elect a proper representative that would be able to rule effectively. And I think that's kind of coming into light even more recently with our current nominees for president. Obviously, in my opinion, they're not the best choices, not the best candidates to be president. And in other places around the world, for example, in the Philippines, recently there's a president that is fighting this war on drugs, and there have been a lot of extrajudicial killings, and he's not been really following due process, and there's been a lot of controversy over that. And the people elected him, and supposedly it's a democracy, but he has a lot of power that it seems like he shouldn't in a democracy. For example, he just released this list of 1,000 politicians that he thought had drug links, and this reminded me a lot of there was a broadcaster during the Red Scare in America that released a list of a bunch of politicians that were supposedly communist, and he gained a lot of power through that, being able to accuse politicians. And this kind of reminds me of that. It doesn't seem very democratic. I think President Duterte, president of the Philippines, I think he's a good example of how democracy can go wrong. Because, I mean, no democracy is truly democratic in a sense. Like, the rich always have more power in a democracy. They have more influence. The media is always a huge factor in a democracy, and can kind of herd the masses, it seems like, in a lot of cases. So people that have power can definitely have the power to change things in a democracy. But I think a democracy does really well in terms of the individual, protecting the individual. For example, you compare America's democracy with the government in China, where you can be jailed for speaking out against the president. And in America, speaking out against the president might incite change. So, in conclusion, I think democracy does a good job of protecting the rights and liberty of the individual.